This is the Rugged Revival podcast, and we are the home of the UK's country, Americana and Roots music community. On today's show, we've got the very talented Zach Wilkerson. Zach's a singer-songwriter based out of the great state of Texas. So welcome to the show, Zach. Great to have you on, mate.
Man, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Absolutely welcome, mate. I think it's always best to kind of hand over to you guys to introduce yourself, because I think if I read off your Spotify bio or your website bio, it just sounds stale. So
Sure, right.
I think it's always nice that you introduce yourself, tell folk who you are, and perhaps tell everyone about your music as well, mate.
Okay. Well, I'm actually not from Texas. I'm from Oklahoma. I was born in the panhandle of Oklahoma in a little bitty town called Buffalo. I lived in Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and then finally Texas before I graduated high school. And I just, as far as music goes, though, I lived in a really small town. There was not much to do out there, but music really came natural. So I started very early. I started singing in church when I was 4. Here in America, we have this amazing tradition of like the old, kind of like the gospel hymn tradition, and that just the gospel music kind of industry or genre itself, that's its own world with all its kind of subgenres and things. But I started singing in church at 4. My folks said, basically, I just kind of came out singing, that it was that it was just kind of a natural thing. I learned to read music before I could read words, and then I started playing piano about 6 or 7, and then I started picking up kind of band instruments. In our little school in Buffalo had a great music program, and so they got kids playing instruments very early. So I started playing the trumpet in first grade, and did that through 6th grade, and always begged my folks for a guitar. Music, like I said, was one of those things. It didn't take much thought. Most of the time, it was trying to stop thinking about music to do what I was supposed to be doing, like schoolwork or something like that. We worked on a farm, and so I grew up on a farm, and music was something I was always doing, even if I was out in the middle of a field with a radio, the closest radio 3 miles away, I was still singing or something. And then all through high school, that's I picked up the guitar when I was 12 years old, and as soon as I picked up the guitar, I got just a few kind of chords in my hands, and the songwriting started pretty much immediately. And to me, it seemed completely natural, like the thing you would do. Uh, and I kind of started writing then. My first couple songs, the first couple songs you write when you're 12 years old, they're not very good. So, it's funny. The first couple songs I wrote, I think I shared them with a couple people, and the reactions were not that great. And so what I did was I didn't want to quit writing. I couldn't really quit writing. It was just always there. So what I did was I kind of just did it in secret, didn't tell anybody. I never talked about it. And that went on until it was interesting, because that went on it's still going on my entire life, the songwriting. But from that point, my folks are very devout in the church, and so I there's a lot of music to be played there. And also in America, we have kind of this what do we call it? Contemporary worship type thing, And now it's kind of all over the place, but for a long time it seemed like it was very taboo, I know, to have live drums and amps on stage at a church, But I was doing that. I did that until, let's see, the year was, uh, 2010. So I was 30, and I just started playing my own songs. Um, and I really wasn't even playing them out that much. There were one or two friends that I was kind of sharing that I was writing, but I wasn't trying to do anything with these things. Um, and then I was a full-time pastor at a church in Canyon, Texas, which is just south of Amarillo. and which is where my wife is from. But I was working out there at this church, and we had, the contemporary worship thing. And one of the guys, well, several of the guys that played in my church band, they were in a country band. And so there were times when we would have a Saturday night service, and they would leave directly from my Saturday night service, and they would go play a bar. They would go play a honky tonk, And well, it was 4th of July one year, and they said, "Hey, man, we really need a guitar player. Our guitar player in our country band, he can't make it to this big show we got for 4th of July. It's a big cookout, celebrate America type deal. We're big into that stuff over here. But so I went over there and played this show, and I guess they really liked what I did. And this country band said, "We know that you work at a church. We know you have other responsibilities, but do you want to keep playing shows with us?" And I agreed. It was really nice because the folks at the church were not, they weren't sideways at all. They knew these guys that I was playing with, and these were good guys. So it wasn't like we were out raising hell or whatever. We had plenty of fun, but so I was kind of doing double duty. I was working at this church, and I was really just playing lead guitar for this country band in Amarillo. A guy named Chancey Burnson, who's an old friend of mine, still love him. And then one night, Chancey and I had been talking about songwriting, but we'd never really shared them with each other. I knew his songs. I was playing in his band, but he'd never heard mine. And he, in the middle of this show, just kind of out of the blue, he said, "Hey, friends, I've got a special treat for y'all. Our friend Zach's going to play some of his songs for you." And he handed me his guitar and then walked off stage. And I'd only been with the band a couple months at this point, and I was like, "What's going on?" So I turned over my shoulder to look at the bass player, Aaron. He was the guy I knew the best in the band. So I kind of look over my shoulder to look at Aaron to think, "Hey, what's going on? Help me out here." And he's already off the stage. He's about a step from the bar already, and the drummer's already gone. And I'm like, "Okay." So I ended up playing a couple songs, and then I got an encore, and they asked me to play a third song. And I found out later that night that Chancey really had to use the bathroom, and he kind of panicked, is what he told me. He said if I didn't play some songs, he was probably gonna have an accident on stage. So that was kind of what he thought. What's crazy is that was the night my friend Casey Berry, who's a personality in Texas. He's a songwriter. He does a lot of work booking shows and stuff like that, but he's an Amarillo guy, and he was there. And he said, "Man, I heard these songs you played. I think, it'd be good for you to start playing your songs, And I said, "Okay, I'll kind of think about it or whatever." But I really had a bad taste in my mouth still from the first time I shared my songs with someone, and I thought, "Yeah, it's okay. I can just kind of sit on these, And then I ended up playing a few of them at this bar. Well, I get a call from Casey one night. It's a Monday night, and he says, "Hey, man, there's this open mic in Lubbock, Texas," which Amarillo and Lubbock, it's only about an hour and 45-minute drive, which for Texas, that's nothing. But he said, they've got this little open mic. It's no pressure, no big deal, He said, "I think it'd be great for you to go down there, play a couple of your songs, and just, meet some other songwriters." And he kept saying, "No pressure, no big deal. Just, I just want to get you into the community of songwriters we have here." And I was appreciative for that. So I thought, okay, but I still wasn't convinced. And then he said, if you go with me tonight, I'll drive you down there. I'll buy your beer. I'll buy your breakfast, and I'll drive you home. I said, "All right, I could."
Sold.
Yeah, those are terms I can agree to. So we drove down there, and when we got in, that's when I realized it was the qualifying round for the Blue Light Live Songwriters Contest they have in Lubbock, Texas every year. That year, that contest has been going on for, gosh, man, close to 20 years now. And really, Lubbock and the Panhandle of Texas has this really interesting relationship with songwriters. There's there's not many people out there, but a lot of the few people are out there are songwriters. It's very interesting. It's something like the wide open space. It just kind of like draws those type of people. And there's so many great songwriters from Lubbock and Amarillo, you know. Um, well, I ended up entering, or he entered me into this contest, and I ended up winning this contest. And that was it was fortunate for me in many ways, but that was the last year that the winner of the Larry Joe Taylor contest played, or I'm sorry, the Blue Light Live Songwriters contest played at this festival we have in Stephenville called Larry Joe Taylor's Texas Music Festival. And you know, they've had there's been years they've had 40,000 people at this festival. It's incredible. It's you know, 99% independent Texas songwriters at these stages, you know, and these huge parties. And I didn't really know that much about the independent Texas scene or Americana scene, of course, because I was kind of well, I was pretty entrenched in like this church thing because I'm still working there, you know, and I win this contest, and then I get to go because I won this. I get to go play a set at this giant festival, and I played that set in April of 2012, and then I quit my last like real day job in September 2012. Just in that short time, man, my songs just took on a life of their own that I still am surprised by every day, you know. And since 2012, this is the only job I've had is, you know, writing songs, making records, and, you know, mostly playing shows, driving around, you know. Here in Texas, we have such an incredible live scene, so many clubs and venues and just all different types of opportunities to play music here. You know, you can stay on the road full time, which I do, and a lot of my peers down here do. Uh, but it's incredible. For me, it's one of those things where songwriting, it's always come very natural. It's never really been a thing I've had to force myself to do. Um, Now I have had to be better at, you know, being a disciplined songwriter and churning out things. Back in 2020, I joined this songwriters club, and we had to write a song every day or a song every week, or they kick you out. And we had 12 songwriters in there. You'd get an email Thursday at noon, and you have to turn in your song Wednesday by midnight. You know, you have to type up all your lyrics. You have to do a little. You even have to make a demo. Uh, you know, some type of
Quite
audio
intense.
recording.
Yeah.
You know, it was incredible. A lot of my friends were in there, and the peer pressure was great for me. But you know, through that, I wrote more songs than I've, you know, ever written in that short of time. I did 130 songs in 2 years, and my newest record, Mud and Sunshine, is from the Song Club. All of those songs are from Song Club. Uh, which is what we call it because we're such creative people. But anyway, yeah, that's my newest record is Mud and Sunshine. It's kind of it's a well, I guess you could say it's a concept album. My idea was if you got kind of transported back to the mid to late 70s, you're riding around in your old muscle car listening to AM radio. Uh, Mud and Sunshine is kind of my vision of maybe what you might hear in an alternative universe, right? Just driving down the highway, seeing whatever comes across the airwaves. But it's got three projects on one double vinyl. There's 21 songs on the digital version, and there's a secret track hidden on the double vinyl. So there's 22 on there. But the first 10 tracks are kind of a rock record, uh, but very, what's the word? I would say lots of different tastes of rock. But for sure has that 70s rock feel, you know. And then the next not 5 or 6 songs are called the mud part of the project, you know. And I was trying to sound like some of the 70s songwriters that I grew up on, like James Taylor and Jim Croce and Carole King and things like that. And then the last 5 songs are well, they're cowboy songs because I grew up in the Panhandle of Oklahoma. So kind of some country type stuff. There's a song on there called Feedlot Cowboy. So the 3 projects are Sunshine, Mud, and Feedlot Cowboy. And I threw it all together, called it Mud and Sunshine. So that's my
I was
fourth.
having a good listen to that today, mate, and
Oh,
it's
thank
it's
you.
incredible. And 21 songs, like you say, I was going through and I thought, wow, this is still going. and,
Yeah. Yeah.
but really interesting. It had so many different flavors of music for me. Pretty much, I wrote a comment earlier to say had everything but gangster rap. So maybe that could be your next
You
album
know what's
genre.
funny? I don't want to give too much away, but when you're writing 130 songs a year, you kind of stretch into some other things that you haven't necessarily written before. And I've got 4 or 5 songs that I'm kind of sitting on, and there's a somewhat well-known uh, producer over here that I've already been in contact with, and we've talked about. He and I have kind of sent back some humorous emails about what would it be like if we just went for this. He's already got the songs in his hands, so we're in dangerous territory. But hey, probably won't be gangster rap, but
Well, that seems
maybe.
to be popular at the moment, isn't it? A bit of
Sure,
a
right?
rap country, but yeah, not for me personally. But no,
No,
that's
not
really
for me.
interesting. I'm always interested to hear about people's backgrounds, and you've given us so much there. Only one question I asked you, and
Yeah, yeah, right.
you give me so much, man. So I appreciate that. I mean. I was talking just before we came on, and I was saying, obviously, our mutual friend Talbo set this up. So
Yeah,
thank you to Talbo. Great guy, brilliant podcast behind the Jared Morris Vibe and Texas to Tennessee podcast. And I think you've been over that way
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But I was talking to Talbo on another platform, and I said, how much professed our love for Adam Hood, basically, because we're fanboys of that dude. And he said, well, if you like Adam Hood, go and speak to Zach Wilkerson because you'll love his stuff too. And he was
Oh
right.
man, that's
He's
great.
never wrong.
No, Talbo, man, it's incredible. It's funny. He's a new friend of mine, but it's incredible how much music that man knows about and how many he's got such you know, seems like he's got his really does have his finger on the pulse of music going on over here. I'm amazed about how much he knows.
Yeah, he's incredible, isn't it? Like, encyclopedia.
Yeah,
But yeah, particularly for independent music, and I think that's why we get on so well, is because obviously this podcast in the UK is predominantly for emerging and independent artists,
it's
and
great.
that's kind of where we bonded. And before, I like going out to different places. We started in the UK at the very beginning of the podcast, and then we sort of ventured around most of the US. So we've been to Kentucky,
Yeah,
Virginia, Alabama, Georgia, and back to Texas quite a few times to Texas, obviously, because it's such a big scene out there, and
right.
everybody that I speak to. I mean, we've had a couple of guys on recently, Zach Welch and Jacob Bryan Marshall from the indie scene, your
Okay,
way too, and it's interesting to get your kind of perspective on things because you've got big kind of places like Billy Bob's, and then
sure.
you've got a lot of independent or smaller venues. So, what
Yeah.
is kind of your thoughts and feelings about Texas as a music scene?
Oh man, I got to tell you, like I'm fortunate. I've played music in 46 of the lower 48 in US, and um I've been fortunate to go on tour with some bigger bands, and I've played in Canada and Mexico. There's just not a scene anywhere like the Texas scene. Um just because there's the sheer number of artists is phenomenal, and it seems there's new artists coming out all the time because the scene really does a good job of kind of replicating itself and has new generations and kind of new classes of artists that come along at the same time. What's really interesting to me is just how many um, venues there are in Texas. You know, um, I was in a little bitty town called Bluffdale, Texas, and I think there's about I want to say 600 or 700 people in this tiny little town. It's a speck on a not large state highway, right? It's not a big place. And I played a show in that little town, and I was playing a small listening room, which I don't know if if you're familiar with the concept of listening rooms, but uh, we have lots of different types of venues here. For listening rooms, those are sit down. Um, Typically, the host will tell people, "Hey, you are here to listen to this. Do not talk. Do not be on your phone. You know, let's give the artist respect." Which, as an artist, it's amazing to go into some place like that. It's really incredible. What I find in those places, those fans, they know your music. You really need to come prepared because they know what it's supposed to sound like. What was interesting about that little town, there's this incredible little listening venue there, right? Uh, Less than a block away, there's also about a 500-seater dance hall. And my friend, it's funny. It's funny. I'm wearing his shirt, Jack Barksdale. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
that, but
cool.
yeah, Jack Barksdale. He's an incredible young man. Kind of a what's the word? Kind of a child savant musician, but child prodigy, I should say. And but he was playing at the dance hall right across, right across the way for his, his kind of different show and stuff. He does kind of a variety show there every year, so it's just kind of funny. But even in small towns like that, you have a variety of venues, and you can go to, you know, uh, live music is such a big part of Texas. There's so many different genres here. Um, and what's incredible is there's enough independent venues that really play genre specific music and they all really support themselves. So there's kind of Texas country bars and there's straight up rock and roll bars, and there's hip hop clubs and there's all kinds of things. We've got Billy Bob's and we've got which I've played Billy Bob's. I've got to play Austin City Limits, the Moody Theater, things like that. But I also get to play little bitty listening rooms, which are so fun. Places like the Redbird Listening Room in New Braunfels, uh, which is really just a tiny house. It's just a house that my friend Dallas Burrow bought. He's an incredible songwriter, singer, incredible guy. But he started this little venue. About half of the seating is old church pews and a tiny one-room house that they just converted into this little space, and about 82 people can fit in that room, I think. But every time I've ever played it, it's usually sold out, and those 80 so people, they're really into the music, you know. And what's interesting about this scene is I feel very fortunate because I get to kind of bounce around and do both. I get to go and play these tiny listening rooms. Um, and then this Saturday, I'm playing the Armadillo Palace in Houston, doing kind of a post Houston rodeo party. Uh, so we're expecting quite a few people to come to that, and I'll go play that with my trio. I have just a bass player and a drummer that I play with. I play lead guitar and sing, obviously, but I get to do a lot of different things. The Texas music scene is, man, I almost hate to let the secret out. You know what I mean? I don't want too many people coming here to, you know, uh, take up what's incredible uh, place to play music. But I'm very fortunate to be down here for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much what a lot of people say. You're very fortunate with the live music scene there. In the UK, it's not the same. Live music is on its knees, and
Yeah,
I think
that's what I
people
hear.
going out, the prices, and I think just the way the government controls a lot of things here, it's just
Yeah,
kind of squeezed venues. So it's very difficult for us to kind of go out and experience that. And we've tried to kind of do this recently with other promoters and things to have guys from the US come over, like Lance Rogers and people
awesome.
recently. So that's what we're trying to do, is trying to revive the kind of
Yeah,
live music scene here. I think it's going to take a lot more than us to kind of
yeah.
get on board of that. But yeah,
Hey,
Texas is
man, every bit
definitely.
helps.
Oh, it does, mate. Honestly, I think it takes a village, a community, and that's what we're all about. It's trying
Sure.
to, not step on one another, but just kind of lift each other up, and not to sound
Yeah.
overly cheesy and like a song, but that
Hey,
that's
I
that's
gotta tell
us.
you, that's really the same attitude we have in Texas. I was at a festival several years ago, and there was a very big Nashville star there. I don't want to say her name. I don't want to tell her story without her permission, but she was she was hanging out in one of the kind of our after parties that a lot of us artists have. Because one very interesting thing about the Texas scene is that the artists know each other, and we spend time. We actually are friends, kind of off the stage, off the screen. You know what I mean? Sequestered songwriters. That's I don't know if you've heard of that, but that was a nonprofit that was started by a couple of friends of mine, and we just played. Really, all we did was, uh, when a lot of the clubs were shut down here and things like that, and things were slower, uh, we just played some songs from our heroes online on Facebook. You can still find it. We left all the videos up, but it's funny because this Nashville artist, she came to this festival and she realized, wait a minute, you guys actually you guys like hang out and like know each other. Like, yes, we are actually friends. Like we like each other. And she was telling us, man, Nashville isn't like this. It's so competitive, and it feels so cutthroat that people can't, she was just bewildered. We were sitting in this little suite at the top of the Grand Hotel in Steamboat Springs, and she looked around, and there was probably that festival has anywhere between 70 and 90 artists every year. And in that room that night, there was probably 40 of the names on the main bill in the same room just hanging out. And she said, man, if we did this in Nashville, it would take lawyers and managers, and there would be contracts and things. I said, no, we genuinely love the community. So I think you're on the right track. It's what sustains Texas is just, man, finding your people, finding the people who, dig what you dig, and just
Yeah.
let's do it together.
Life's more fun that way. I think I'd have a heart attack or my life would decrease rapidly if I was in Nashville in around that
Yeah.
environment. It's too stressful. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'm kind of getting in terms of how, like to say, Nashville is set up as opposed to some of the other scenes. But no, Texas seems like where I'm at home, particularly music wise and
Good.
community wise.
Come
And
on down, man.
I'd love to, mate. I'd absolutely love to come out and
Yeah.
see you guys play.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So, other stuff you've been getting up to, Zach.
Yeah.
I noticed that you've been doing the old TikTok lives.
Yeah. A
So,
few of them. Yeah.
yeah, how are you getting on with that? What's going on?
For me, it's interesting. I've always been one of those people that I'm kind of a social media hermit. I don't, as beautiful as social media can often be, there's also the other side of the coin, right? And for me, I don't know. I'm one of those people. I'm kind of one of those. Well, it's funny. Talbot and I had this conversation because I said, I feel like an introvert until I find people who, I feel are like-minded, and I can
Yeah.
get along with. And Talbot was saying, man, you're a hybrid. You're a little bit of both. And for me, social media definitely feels that way. There's a lot of times I'm totally happy just to be on my lonesome, but that's not a good way to sell music. So, I'm trying to be, better, get out of my shell a little bit more. I'm so fortunate, like I said, all I do is play music. And if I'm being totally honest, I feel like I have to, you know, when I grew up on a farm, so I grew up working every day, right? And you worked hard, long days every day. And now I'm to this point in my life where I work 6 or 7 days a month. The rest of the time, I'm just hanging out with my family. I've got three beautiful kids. I've been married 23 years this year, and it's like I'm having so much fun just kind of hanging out with all my people and doing the stuff we do. It's funny. I'll get to the end of the day and realize, oh wait, I'm supposed to talk to my phone for a little bit today. Uh, and I think there's a lot of people who definitely feel that strain. Uh, for us, I know for myself as a musician and some of the musicians I've talked to, it's a different art form for us. I feel totally natural uh, walking in. My favorite place to be is a recording studio. You know, um, when we made Mud and Sunshine, we made it at Yellow Dog. Well, we did all the tracking, had it mixed by the guys at Yellow Dog, and it was actually mastered at Abbey Road. Um,
Wow.
Yeah, my friend Dave Percival at Yellow Dog, he's an incredible engineer. He owns his own Grammy-winning studio, but he also is a preferred engineer and a strings arranger for Abbey Road. So he hooked me up with some of his guys. Sean McGee, who's worked on he uh he did all the Beatles remasters, so he's kind of knows what he's doing. But
Knows the stuff.
he also mastered my record. But places like that, Yellow Dog Studios, things like that, man, that's where I love to be. That a microphone, I'm okay in front of a microphone. When you add a camera, uh, I just don't know what. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Have you ever seen the Will Ferrell movie, Talladega Nights? You ever seen it?
Yes, a long time ago.
And he says, "I
Yeah.
don't know what to do with my hands." That's exactly how I feel as soon as you put a camera in front of me. It's like what do I do? And it's kind of funny. I don't know. I'm trying to approach it with a little bit more humor, less seriousness. It's funny. My life is so beautiful. Um, my life is so just fantastic. I have a hard time. Uh, I don't know. I guess feeling the need to. I don't know. What is it? What am I trying to say? My life is beautiful, so I'm not trying to get anything out of social media.
Yeah.
But there is kind of some things I should be trying to get out of social media, if we're being honest.
It's the beast you've got to tame
It is.
sometimes. It
Yeah,
really is, mate.
you gotta feed the schmeeds, as my friend Eric Tessimer would say. You gotta feed the schmeeds.
I completely feel you on that, Zach. I'm
Yeah.
a bit like you. I'm an introvert, massive introvert, which is what I don't know why I started a podcast, because it's kind of an extrovert's world
Yeah.
almost.
Well, I've
But
been
here we are.
watching from the fringes. You've done a great job.
Oh,
It's
thank
incredible.
you.
So yeah,
I
I've been
appreciate it.
very excited to be on this podcast. I've been telling people about it since Talbot and I talked about it. Um, Actually, going to play in the UK and Europe, that's like one of my bucket lists. Uh, my family is English. Wilkerson's an English name. We can trace our family back to pre-Columbian times, back to England, and so I've always wanted to come back and play music there. I've got a lot of friends who've been fortunate enough to play music in Europe and UK, and guys like Uncle Lucius and stuff. And it's funny because they all say, "Man, you got to get there. You're exactly what they're looking for." So I would, I would love to be there, man. Yeah,
And we'd love to have you, mate. We don't have many artists like you in the UK at all. We've got some blues guys and some kind of soulful people, but you're kind of the whole, in my opinion, the whole package.
Oh,
So
wow. Thanks,
yeah,
man.
to have you over here would be a dream for us as well, mate. And we'll make that happen. We'll make that
Let's do
happen
it.
sometimes. We'll share a Guinness while you're here, or beer,
There you
whatever
go.
you're into.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, man. So what have their experiences been like of the UK? Because I'm hearing people that have come over to play say it's more, people are more kind of in tune with the music. They're more listening, whereas in
Yes.
America, perhaps because you've got more establishments there, more opportunities, people are,
Right.
it's more of a bar grill type environment.
Absolutely.
Um, so
Or a club. Yeah. Yeah. We have a
yeah.
lot of clubs here, and I play some clubs, which is, when I'm with my band, it doesn't bother me to be in a club with a couple hundred loud drunks because they're never going to be louder than us. You know what I mean? So we just play rock and roll and we have a good time, and they can, if they want to be part of the show, if they want to be in the back being loud, whatever, it's not going to affect us. Uh, what I've been told by my friends is that there's just so much respect for the music, and really, um, they all bragged on the audiences in that, like, uh, they could tell how rare it was for the audience. My friends could tell how, because it was like you say, such a precious thing to have one of these bands come through over there or for y'all, and like you said, over here, and even like I said, every little town's got a loud bar, and everybody's got uh, a little sound system, and they'll cram they might it comes in so many different capacities, but it's interesting because one of my friends said it was kind of crazy, man, because I've and he was it was a different band, and they're very much like a rock band, and he said it was kind of crazy because he's not used to getting that much attention from people, like for people to be that attentive to what he's doing. He's usually, just out rocking around,
Was it
and if people are
off-putting?
paying attention, yeah, it's a little. And also my understanding is, Americans, we're loud, and we're pretty brash, and especially like in a concert and stuff, we Americans get loud, and they were saying that UK and European audiences were just so silent. They were just so locked in.
We
They
are,
they
yeah.
they didn't they just gazing, and that's again, that's one of those things. It's not often that we get that. That's honestly, the listening room experience. What I've been told is a lot like kind of the experience y'all have over there,
Okay, yeah.
because yeah, there's just so much attention given to the artists and the songs, and like the audience knows the material. They know your songs. They know what you sound like. So that's what I've been told, which I think part of the reason that I would be excited to be there. I've got one of my mentors and oldest friends is a gentleman named Walt Wilkins. And I don't know if you're familiar with his music, but he is, man, he's kind of like the Texas's artist, if that makes sense.
Okay.
He's written dozens of songs for other acts. Um, I don't know if you've heard of Pat Green, but
Yeah.
like Walt Wilkins is mentioned by name in a Pat Green song. Like that's the kind of guy that Walt is. He's like Texas's version of Gandalf. Okay, if there was if there was an alternate universe of Lord of the Rings that was just Texas, like he'd be the guy. But his music is absolutely incredible. You should definitely look it up. But he goes to Europe, I think, every year, and plays a lot of those listening room type places, which is
Yeah.
what he plays here as well. Uh, but all those people who've been, they've said just the fans are incredible. So I would I would love to come and try it out. See for
For sure.
myself.
Well,
Yeah.
when I spoke to a couple of the guys that have come over recently this year, I have reassured them and said we are enjoying it. We're just listening.
Yeah.
Um, we don't tend to dance too much either, unless we've had a few beers, and then we kind of come out of our shell. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
reassuring you guys that we are listening. We're having a great
Right.
time. Just
Yeah.
don't worry about us. We're
Yeah.
we're good. So yeah, you'll definitely have to come over here, mate. We'll set something up. Um, but yeah, okay. So there's a few other questions I like to
Yeah.
ask
Sure.
during the show, mate. One of the things that I set up recently was a dedicated playlist. So for everyone that comes on the podcast or people that we meet live out in the venues, I think it's great to have just a couple of songs dedicated to you on the playlist. So people can, if they want to know what the Rugged Revival's about or the artists that have come on, I think it's a great way to kind of go in there. You can listen to, a whole bunch of tracks. That'll be fantastic. So for you, what two songs should we put on a playlist that kind of represent who you are and would be a good place for people to start?
Let's see. Well, I'll take one off the Sunshine side. That would be "Set Me Free." That's a fun song. Uh, on that one, I have my friend Johnny Keys from Uncle Lucius,
Oh, great
and
band.
yeah, and Rio Tripiano from Copper Chief, uh, and then my bass player and drummer from my band are on there. Um, and then let's see, and then I'll take one from Mud. So we'll do Mud, the song Mud. Uh,
Cool.
and and that one has also Johnny's on that project as well, but I went a different direction, and I've got Cody Braun from Reckless Kelly playing lots of different instruments on that part of the record. So yeah, Set Me Free and Mud, those would be good ones. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'll get those added. At the beginning, when I set this up, I was kind of just picking my favorites, and I thought that's probably not the way to do it. Let's speak to the artist and let's say what would represent you best. And it's great because you come out with different songs than I would have picked. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
good.
really interesting.
Well, tell me, what songs would you have picked? I always like to hear what songs kind of get people's ear.
I like Blacktop Highway on your new
Okay.
one. I think it's a
Yeah.
fantastic song. I love the blues. I love that sort of feeling. Lonely Together, is it called that one?
Lonely Together Tonight. Yeah.
That's the one. It's a bit older. It's one of your older
Yeah.
tracks, isn't
That's
it?
from my first EP. Yeah.
But that's fantastic. That's one that we actually shared on TikTok a while back. Because I thought, oh, this guy's cool, man. So
Thanks,
we
man.
put that out. So yeah, but it's I suppose they're quite similar-ish songs. So it's great to kind of get your perspective of what you would put on there. So we'll get that added, mate. That's what we'll
Thank you.
do. And other interesting stuff I like to kind of eke out of artists that come on is, you probably get the question all the time, what's your all-time favorite song or artist? And
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think there's been a lot of stuff over the last 10 years, with, new artists coming about, new music being released. Well, I think the best question to ask is what kind of album or single have you listened to in the last 10 years that's been your favorite or something that's really stood out for you?
Oh, wow. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna bring up my friend Johnny Keys again. His real name is John Grossman. He plays keys for, obviously, for Uncle Lucius. Uh, he was in the songwriter club I was in, uh, and he was also in another songwriters club at the same time. So he was doing two songs a week. Johnny and I have been friends for years. He's played on my last two records. I've got four records released, but he's played on Mud and Sunshine and Evergreen. But he put out a record um, under a project called Sleepy John. It's a solo album, and these are brilliantly written. Totally, like he's got some of the best players in Texas on these records with him. Uh, because John is, he's what we call a studio assassin. Okay, he can just go in and he will kill it in about 10 minutes, and then he's on to the next song. Like, he's just incredible.
And leaves.
Yeah, and yeah, on to the next. Yeah, and he's this incredible personality as well. But his record, I believe it's called. Let me see. I gotta find it for real. I wanna. Um, that record, Sleepy John. That, oh man, I absolutely love that album. Let's see what else. Shiny Ribs is one of my favorite bands. Okra Candy. That's man, it's coming up close to 10 years. But Okra Candy is a great record that they put out. Um, Let me think what else in the last 10 years. Uh, well, Silverado,
Oh,
they
great band. Yeah.
yeah, they used to be Mike and the Moon Pies, but now they're Silverado. But Neon, that record, You Look Good in Neon, that record is that may not even be the name of the record. I should know. I sing on that record, but uh, but that whatever record that was on, now I gotta find it.
So you were
Uh,
singing on that record, were you?
yeah, I did. I sang on. Let me see. I gotta find. Hmm. I'll see it all.
This good
Since the
old
names.
Spotify.
Yeah, I'm on Spotify right now. That's what I'm trying to find out. There they are. Yeah, You Look Good in Neon. That's the record. Th- let's see here. Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold. That's the record I was looking for. That's the name of it. They actually did that one at Abbey. Uh,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah. We have quite a few mutual production friends. Adam Oder, Dave Percival, just incredible engineers and producers over here. So, but that record, Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold, is, man. I got to tell you, that's one of the best sounding records I've heard, not in just the last 10 years, but I'd probably go a lot longer than that. I don't know if you're familiar with the record, but goodness gracious, it's incredible. Uh, let's see what else. What else could I think of that's who put out some incredible records? Man, so many of my friends are always putting out incredible records, so I'm afraid to leave any of them out.
That's just the difficulty, isn't it? As
Yeah,
someone
it's
gets left out, they'll be texting you later.
yeah, I'm gonna step into something here if I'm not careful, you know. Got to be careful who I leave out. Yeah, I've always been kind of a weird, you know, my music isn't really mainline country, even though I just mentioned one of the best mainline country bands ever. Uh, so a lot of what I listen to is weird. I don't listen to very much music at all. In fact, there's a songwriter named Jimmy Webb. I don't know if you've heard of him. He wrote the song "The Highwaymen." He wrote "Wichita Lineman," kind of a like historic, old school Nashville songwriter. Lots and lots of cuts. But he had a book that he put out years ago, and he talks about when he became a songwriter on a publishing deal. He stopped listening to music because he didn't want to copy anyone. Because we're trying to make new music, you know, and you don't want to get in some kind of like copyright battle or whatever. And I took that to heart a bit over a decade ago, and I haven't really listened to much music. In fact, when I'm driving in my van, I usually am just driving in silence because the highway is where I write a lot of songs. It's just in silence, you know. I just write them in my head, so I don't listen to much. So I'm trying to think of who else I could throw out there, but those are probably three of the best I've heard in the last 10 years.
There's some excellent suggestions, and I'm always tempted to kind of put another playlist together of the suggestions that we receive because
Yeah, that'd be cool.
there's some fantastic ones there, and like you say, sometimes there's some obscure ones that just get
Yeah,
thrown at us, and I thought I didn't see that
yeah.
one coming. So
Oh, oh, Uncle Lucius the Light. I
oh,
knew I was
cool.
missing one. I got
Yes,
thrown off because I talked about Johnny.
there you
Yeah,
go.
Uncle Lucius the Light. That's an incredible. That's yeah. I knew there
They
was one
they've
I
been
was
doing
missing.
fantastic. Like I say, I've seen their name
Yeah,
pop up in Europe more recently, and
yeah,
I'm a big listener of the Ranch Radio, which I keep bigging up on every single bloody podcast that I do. but
yeah,
uh, but that's where I kind of found Uncle Lucius and a lot of these bands, and
yeah,
they were one of my favorites, particularly last couple of years. So yeah,
yeah.
fantastic, man. We'll stick that on a new playlist.
Please do.
I
Yeah,
think. We'll certainly do that. And this is gonna be even more difficult for you. And I always kind of preface it by saying, it's not an endorsement for anyone. Like you say, you're not going to get any text later with anyone
yeah.
complaining. But because we're a platform for independent and emerging artists. So for us, it's like, who is an emerging musician or band that you've been listening to or following or met out on the road that you think, our listeners should be watching out for?
Hmm. Let's see. Man, gosh, I could list you off about 20 people I know that people should be listening to. Uh, Let me see. Gosh, trying to think of. Do you mean like when you say emerging, are you saying someone new in the last few years or
I would say somebody that's probably under the radar at the minute, and the what's the right word? It's to say, they're not quite on people's radars. They're perhaps not on the radio stations. It's more difficult to find them on Spotify. Those type
hmm,
of artists, I think.
hmm, goodness, that's a good question. Who you might have got me.
It's always the one that stumps people.
Yeah, it's interesting because who do you want to I'm trying to think of who I would put in that category, you know. Hmm. You got me thinking now. Usually I'm not at a loss for words as you could hear, but
It's a difficult one. Like you say, I think it's twofold because it's not technically an endorsement, so we don't
right.
want to upset people, but also it's trying to find people that are in that category
Yeah.
as well, because you don't want to be. I was trying to find the words a minute ago. I didn't want to be rude to say, well, they're not on anyone's radar, but I
Yeah.
think they're probably underrated, under the radar, so to speak. That
Yeah.
people I think should be listening to, and we've had some fantastic suggestions before, and you know, it's a good question that I like to ask anyway, just to stump you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me see here. My buddy Steve Talbot, he sent me, let me see here. I believe the young man's name is Dustin Perkins.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard of Dustin. It might have been through Talbot's show. So
Well, that's how I found out about him was through Talbot. And Talbot sent me one or two songs that he's got. Partly because Dustin's going to open some shows for me when I'm out playing my stuff. But just based on the couple songs I've heard, I like what I hear. It's, it's definitely got that Americana vibe. The country is present, but there's a little bit more, there's a little bit more movement to it, maybe. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So, yeah, check out Dustin Perkins. Like I said,
we will do.
he doesn't have a whole lot out there. So that's maybe he's a good one.
That's a good way
So,
to put it as well. You know, artists that don't have an extensive catalogue,
yeah,
but they've got some fantastic songs, one or two or
sure.
three maybe. You know,
Yeah.
they're always good to watch out for. And fantastic. So you mentioned Dustin's kind of supporting you on your kind of headline shows that you're doing. How do you pick artists that kind of support and open up for you? How does that process work?
It can happen in a different number of ways. Um, you know, the most common way is having a mutual friend or a direct friendship with somebody. And that's usually the easiest way to, there's much larger artists that I open for, and it's really only because we've got a relationship kind of outside the music business, if that makes sense. Um, so that's kind of the number one way. A lot of times, the venue will have someone in mind. Like we talked about, the scene is constantly replicating itself, and so for every small town that has a venue, there's one or two young guys trying to make it happen. A little uh, young, local, hungry guys or gals that just want to go play some songs. And so a lot of these venues have, one or two people kind of built in who become kind of like the house, the house opener, things like that. So I've had some people open for me in those ways, you know. Um, I do have a booking agency that I work with now. Um, and we have quite a few kind of younger, maybe not as established artists. Uh, and sometimes it's just through the booking agency. My booking agent will just say, "Hey, man, we're gonna put him on this one because we need to get him in this venue here down the road in about 9 months." Like, yeah, makes sense. Come on, we'll have a party. And then sometimes, man, it's just you just ask. Every once in a while, I got someone who'll send me a message, or they'll contact the venue, or they'll contact a mutual friend, however it works, and say, "I'd really love to come and open this show for you," and it's interesting because most of the time they're really just asking me for permission. I leave the business between them and the venue because ultimately they're working for the venue. Uh, but it's always a good feeling when you've got younger musicians who they look up to enough to say, "Well, that's the kind of person I want to be opening shows for." But it can happen lots of different ways, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I like to understand the kind of mechanics to everything. Because
Yeah,
not being an artist, but kind of seeing things from a different perspective, it's almost like, how does that work?
right.
So that's great to kind of share with that. I think a good question to kind of ask is something away from the music. And you say you've got a lot of spare time, you spend a lot of time with the
Yeah.
family. Do you have any kind of hobbies or any things that you're into away from music that people might be quite surprised about?
Let's see. Well, it's funny. My hobbies are really it really is like guitar and music related. I build guitars and amps and guitar pedals and stuff like that. But outside of music stuff, I've got a 1960 Chevy Corvair. that I tinker with, an weird old American car that I just kind of tinker with and stuff like that. I've always loved engines and tinkering with cars and stuff. In fact, my first I got my first sound system when I started playing music. I I traded a couple motorcycles that I was building for this PA so that I could go and play with my band. Uh, Things like that. I really love kind of mechanical engineering type stuff. Um, let's see what else. I read a lot of books, which is kind of boring, but one thing I like is I kind of like video games. Um, I don't I don't play them very often, but it is something I kind of mess with quite I don't sleep much. I've got pretty bad insomnia and had it for years, and so there's sometimes when I'm trying to find a way to fill my time quietly, if that makes sense, which automatically excludes everything in this room. But so sometimes I just, when I can't sleep, I have a waking night, I call them. I might just play some video games and stuff like that. So that's something I'm into. But most of the time, man, I'm just hanging out with my family, and you know what I mean? People assume that this life is really just kind of crazy and chaotic, and it absolutely is when you are in the midst of the music, right?
Yeah.
And what I find with a lot of my friends who we reach this certain level where we're constantly grinding. When we're at home, we're kind of all the way at home, if that makes sense. And it becomes like, my family, we go out of our way to keep it chill around here. Like we don't, you know what I mean? We try not to have too many extra activities and things like that. Like, cause when I'm home, let's just be home and, chill and things like that. Uh, so yeah, I'm kind of a, I'm kind of a boring family man, to be honest with you. Like I work on my car and I play my guitar way too much, and take my dog on a walk, just things like that.
No, I completely relate. I've got two young kids, and that feels
It's
more
great.
than the time that I have. And yeah, video games. I'm a bit like you. I have to kind of fill my day with something. I find it
Yeah.
hard to sit still. And if I'm not listening to a podcast when I'm going to bed, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to have something kind of going through
Okay.
my brain constantly. So I can relate to a few things there, mate. My brain went blank a minute ago, as you can recall, when I was
Yeah.
thinking about a question. I was like, what the bloody hell was I thinking in that moment? It's just come back to me. And so you talked about kind of what people think the kind of life of a touring musician is. And, when I mentioned about the kind of young and up and coming artists,
Sure.
the question I had was, what advice do you have for those guys? Because I suppose when I speak to a lot of different artists of different stages of their career, a lot of you guys have kind of ground it out from the beginning. It's been a kind of tough slog, and sometimes it continues to be a tough slog.
Sure.
But with this kind of day and age with social media, I find it interesting to see what the perspective is from a young artist that might be more in tune and more kind of in touch with social media. Do they believe that it's a quicker route to go viral and to kind of
Mm.
skip certain stages, that you can go to bigger audiences or
Yeah.
better venues? I mean, what sort of what's your experiences of that for a start, and maybe what advice do you have for those young artists?
You know, um, Goodness, I have so many things to say about that. The first thing I would say for any young artist, if you're going to get into this business, my first piece of advice is to get healthy. And I mean physically and kind of, mentally, spiritually type thing. Because physically, this job, it wants to wreck you. Like everything about it. You're going to be in a van for, you know, sometimes 8, 10 hours a day. And then you have to go up and, take your body that has just been beat up by the highway for 8 hours. Now take that body up there and give every ounce of energy you have for the next 90 minutes. And then right after that, there's this eventual kind of, it's almost like an adrenaline crash, right? And that can wreck your body, physically can wreck your body. But that process also can wreck kind of your heart and your mind. And so get your body and your mind healthy to take on all the crap that you're about to encounter. That's my first piece of
Love
advice.
it.
My second piece of advice is you do not need a recording contract. You don't need it. Start your own record label. Start your own publishing company. I own my record label. I own my publishing company, which means every single cent that my songs make belongs to me. I don't have to pay anyone. I don't have to pay anyone back. A lot of people don't know that a record contract is just it's basically financing. It's exactly the same as like financing a home. Usually the interest rate is significantly worse on a record contract. And when you get a record contract, they are loaning you money to make a record, and they are hoping that you can make enough money off that specific recording to recoup the money that they've given you. And if you don't, your band's at a loss, and you are going to be paying money. You're going to be playing shows, driving down the road, selling t-shirts, all these things that you have to do. And the money is going to be going to people you're trying to pay back. And a lot of people get crushed under this idea of old school music business. These days, you don't need a record label. You are the record label. And you don't need Sony Music or any of these things. Those are amazing companies, and they do incredible work. But most of what they do now is they find people who've already figured it out, and they jump on their train. That's the model now. So, write your own songs, make your own records. The other thing I would say about making records, and this is going to be very antithetical, okay? No one cares if you make a record with Abbey Road. Like, that's kind of for music type people, you know? But the general listener, they don't know what microphone you have. They don't know. They're not going to care if you're using Logic or, Pro Tools. They don't care. What they care is, did I hear something I like? And what I'm trying to encourage kids to do is just make the record. Do the best you can. Learn as much as you can. You can learn anything from YouTube, the internet now. Learn as much as you can, but don't hold yourself back from making some music because you think, well, I don't have thousands of dollars to hire a studio and a producer and all these things. I don't think we're in that world anymore. And I think people can get away with making records that are cheaper, faster, easier. And most fans don't care. They don't know. They don't care, And I say that as someone who just mastered a record at Abbey Road. You don't need to do that level of production to get your production out there. So that's just do it, kid. Just make the recording. If you got a song that you just have to get out, just get it out, And if it's great, it's great. The best way to learn to make amazing art is to make shitty art every day. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to learn. So just make it. Just be prepared to fail,
I will be clipping that part, mate.
Yeah. But the last thing I would say is, if you're wanting to play music, do it for the right reason. And you really have to, that's self-defining. I've been told for years, you define your own success, and I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly now. I don't play a lot of like arenas and things like that. It happens every once in a while where I play a huge show like that. I played quite a few festivals I just played Outlaws and Legends in Abilene. We had a few thousand people out there. But this, well, how do I say this? I'm not sure how to say this. Well, my thought has kind of changed now. But just be, kind of get out there and play is one of the things I was going to say. And you define your own success. Don't let small opportunities hold you back because they're small. Go after them, you know? Especially when I was starting out, it felt like no room was too small. Uh, Now, there's a certain point when you want to start directing yourself out of those smaller rooms, especially if you're playing a tiny room for tips. You know, I play tiny rooms now for a pretty high ticket price. So small rooms aren't all that bad. But, just get out there and do it. Don't let anything hold you back. And use the internet. Use what we got. Get yourself out there. You might be surprised and find some people, you
Yeah.
know.
That's the flip side of social media. We talked about taming the beast, but like you
Yeah.
say, I think with everything at your fingertips now, you don't even need a marketing company. You can be the marketing company.
Yeah.
If you've got the time and the inclination, it's all there. So that's
Right.
fantastic advice, mate. I think that's so great for young artists to hear certain things around that, to say actually you can do it, and doing it for the right reasons. There's a lot of artists
Yeah.
that we speak to say very similar things. Don't write a song because you think it will sound good at Red Rocks, because whatever you
Yeah.
come out with will probably sound shit. So
Yep. Yep.
do it for because you like it. And
Yeah.
then if you like it, someone else will kind of gravitate towards that.
Sure. That reminds me of another piece of advice I should have given earlier, is that you just reminded me that one thing I tell young songwriters all the time is be very careful about what you write, because the best possible outcome is you're going to play that song every night for the rest of your life. That's the best possible outcome, right? So you have to be careful about what you write. I know that a lot of young writers, um, they want to write a kind of a party song, and especially when you're a young person, here 21 is when you can legally drink, so about that age is what I've seen is there's kind of this idea of like it would be great to have a party song and an anthem, a beer drinking anthem type thing. And I am not disregarding those types of songs, but I will tell you that I know artists that 15 years ago, when they were 20, they wrote a party record, and now they're close to 40, and they're trying to sell party music still. And you just have to be careful, because like I said, best possible outcome is you're going to be stuck with the song. So write songs you really believe in, uh, just, yeah, just be very careful about what how do you want to be, known for the next 20 years, maybe, or the next 5 or so. It could you might you might strike gold, and you might be playing these songs for a minute. I'll be honest with you, I never expected my career to last this long and to grow the way it's grown. Uh, Most of my fans aren't on social media. It's very interesting because I have an incredible fan base, and um, we've done some demographic studies and stuff for my music, and the people who do listen to my music, they don't spend as much time on the social media platforms, um, but they still found me. And I say all that to say is, even if you don't have this giant, what we feel like is just life changing success, I think we all daydream about that, waking up one morning and checking your numbers overnight and like, oh, wow, I went viral or something. Even if that doesn't happen, you can still find your people. You can
Yeah.
still find the people to support your music. So you just got to get yourself out there.
That's true. We've kind of found a clique of people that are into kind of what we do. It's not huge numbers, and I've said before, we're not into collecting people because it feels weird after a while.
Sure.
You're looking at numbers kind of totting up, and I think, yeah, it's all great, but what does it actually mean if
Yeah. What's it actually
hardly?
mean?
Yeah, you want engaged, numbers, not just high numbers, but for me,
Sure.
engaged numbers. Otherwise, what's it all for?
Yeah.
It's
What are we doing? Yeah.
what are we doing? So no, fantastic advice, mate. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think the next kind of segment would be good, just to kind of cover off, what projects you might have coming up. Anything you can reveal to us that you're working on.
Well, like I mentioned with Song Club, I've got, so many songs written that I'm just kind of sitting on now. Um, I have the next 4 records uh, in pre-production already, just because that's so many. I put out 21 songs on Mud and Sunshine. That still leaves another 110 of these songs that we did through this club. Uh, I'm not saying I'm going to use all of them for sure. There's quite a few funny songs on there, which is ironically the we would write songs in the club just to stay in the club sometimes. It was very loose that way. And it became kind of this unspoken rule is like, man, if you can't write something like deep and serious this week, write something silly and funny. And I actually got some really great funny songs out of that club, just honestly, just by trying to not get kicked out. Uh, and I've thought about putting out these funny songs, just as a super kind of I do like a quick and dirty release, not even like a full record release, just kind of maybe make
Get it
one
out
post
there.
about it and just throw them out there. But I do have there's 2 records in particular, about 21 songs again, that I'm really feeling are going to be the next project I put out, and it'll be a mixed genre project as well. This one's going to be about 10 songs of one and about 10 songs of another, so a little bit less split up than Mud and Sunshine. But one one of the records really pushes back kind of to my 2014 EP, so a bit more like Poor Man Blues or Middle of the Night, those types of songs. And then the other record I'd like to do is, well, it's different from anything else I've ever done. It'd be more of like a kind of an alternative, um, almost like an alternative pop, adult contemporary type record. Much more based on songwriter type ideas than groove, if that makes sense. So those are the 2 that I think are going to be the next 2. But like I said, I've got the next 4 or 5 just kind of all just sitting there waiting. So
You're nothing but prolific, mate. I'm intrigued to see, especially the funny ones that come
yeah,
out.
the
And
funny
I'll be
ones are
sure to
fun to play
repost it
too.
as well.
Yeah, right. It's funny is one of the funny songs. I actually put it on my TikTok. It's called "Dog," is because that was all the prompt we got. And so if you want to hear what that funny album would kind of sound like, "Dog" is a pretty good indication of what those silly songs would be. It's on my TikTok. It's on my TikTok somewhere.
We'll
Uh,
we'll dig that out. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, mate. But what about collaborations then? Are the kind of tracks that you're doing, is it all kind of you and your band? Anyone else kind of surprising coming in to kind of work on any tracks with
yeah.
you?
Well, it's I really like taking my road band with me to the studio. Both my bass player, my normal bass player is Cole Bedingfield, and my normal drummer is Nathan Zeem, and those guys are just, man, they are just so proficient, incredible musicians, and we've been playing several years together now, so they kind of know they kind of know what moves I'm going to make before I make them, so they're able to follow. I'll probably continue to work with John Grossman for the rest of both of our lives. So he's kind of just an assumed to be on all of my recordings, now. And then really just there's so many people that I really like to collaborate with. What's interesting on this on the first record I talked about that's a little bit more groove based, we've been having some conversations about having probably fewer people on it. We're kind of want to approach it like an old Motown production. Uh, Very sparse, lots of space, lots of wide open sound. And to get that, typically you have to have fewer people involved just to leave space. So on that one, we're going to do it that way. Man, it's really incredible. I have so many musicians that I can that we have access to. Like I talked about, the community is so intertwined, and everyone works with everyone. Everyone's kind of on everybody else's records and things like that. Um, yeah, it's I don't know. There's a lot of people I like to work with. Okalooshus. We've talked about doing a couple runs together later on this year. My friend Matt Hillier from 1100 Springs, he was in that song club as well. Incredible, incredible, prolific writer. Just love what he does. You want to talk about mainline, old school country, kind of a rockabilly feel, even. Gosh, you guys, yeah, Matt Hillier, 1100 Springs, incredible. But he and we're gonna probably do a solo. Well, how do you say it? A song swap tour, I guess is a good way to say it. So we'll both go out without our bands, just he and I together, and play some of those listening rooms. Looking at probably the East Coast of the U.S. Doing that later. I think that's maybe late summer, early fall. But that's what I've got coming up, and just, here pretty quick. But, there's always, man, I'm fortunate. I get to play music with a lot of really cool people. So collaboration is one of those things that happens. It can happen at the drop of a hat around here, You might get a call and say, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "Well, I'm off, Well, can you come play guitar on this record, or come sing, or, I've got a couple co-producer credits that way, just like Midnight River Choir. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that band. Incredible, kind of a Texas groove band. Man, they're awesome. But got a co-producer credit on one of their records, just hanging out at the studio and giving ideas and helping kind of herd cats kind of keep the thing going. But yeah, collaboration is one of those things I'm always open to. I would like to do it more, but I'm usually so caught up doing my own thing.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard. I'm very fortunate. I'm thankful. I'm kind of in that type of routine now, where it's like, if you want to do something, you kind of have to catch up with whoever you want to do it with, because we're all working.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I only see my friends if we're playing a show together. So like that festival last week, I got to play with Max and Heather Stalling. They're two of my oldest friends, sequestered songwriters type people. I don't know if you know them, Max and Heather Stalling. Oh my gosh, Max is an incredible, like I said, traditional country songwriter and singer, and his wife Heather plays fiddle, and they're just incredible together. But I only get to see them when we are working together. So, but yeah, collaboration is the best. So I'm really open to it. I would like to do some things kind of outside my scene, though. Like we were talking about the like maybe a gangster rap, probably not a gangster rap, but I'd really like to make an R&B record, and I'd like to use a producer, an engineer, a studio, and all musicians that are totally outside of people I work with constantly, right? And not because I'm trying to get away from them, but I would, just there's so much music to be had. I would hate to limit myself,
For
So
sure. That would be really interesting to hear an R&B track, because a lot of, the songs that you do have elements of that anyway, but to
right.
take it a one step further would be an interesting project.
It's funny. A few years ago, I was with a few of my friends in the studio setting, and we were it was when this song club was still actively happening. So I'm still writing all these different things. And one of my friends mentioned, yeah, I think it would be great if you made a record. They were trying to get me to make a like traditional blues record, like just 10 songs of not even trying to put in the other stuff that I always shove in. Like, just make a straight blues record. And I thought, man, I thought that sounds hilarious to me. And then as more people, it kind of got around our little circle, people started talking, oh, that'd be fun. Let's do that. I could see the same thing taking off if I started telling people I wanted to make a R&B hip hop record. I could see some people saying, ooh, You know,
I,
let's
I
get
think
silly.
we could have some fun with the album cover. You could either be in a
Yeah,
white suit or you can have the big
sure.
chains. I think
Yeah,
we'll have some
yeah,
ideas flowing then.
yeah. I'm not sure you're gonna get me in big chains. Maybe a white suit. Maybe.
We'll
That's
try,
funny.
mate. Um, yeah, and just a couple of final questions, mate. You interestingly mentioned, a lot of your fans and your community are not necessarily online. And
Yeah,
one of the questions that we kind of put to people is, how can we best support you, either whether it's online or in person? What kind of works for you guys as artists that we can, as a community do to help you?
sure. Man, the biggest things, it really is your dollars. It's attention and your dollars that help out the most. And so, if you can just talk about an artist, if there's an artist you find, believe it or not, with all the social media and all the, we're in the information and communication age, but people still will listen to a band if their friend tells them word of mouth. It still works that way. It's crazy. We have all these amazing tools, and it still takes like your friend going, "Hey, you need to listen to Adam Hood." Oh, okay, I'll do it. You're right. It's crazy, but tell your friends about the stuff you love. That's a huge one. Um, Buying merch is one of functionally the most helpful things you can possibly do. And I tell people all the time, go ahead and people say that they feel guilty or whatever about streaming, right? Because they know that kind of the artist does not get a great deal on streaming, right? But I tell people, if you spent $20 on a t-shirt, you have basically just bought yourself a license. If we're going off of Spotify's pricing at 0.00003 cents per spin, and you give me $20 for a t-shirt, you've bought yourself a lifetime license to spin me on Spotify for the rest. Like, you've basically paid for millions of spins. So just go for it. T-shirts, buy a CD, buy a record, buy a hat, whatever you can do. Those things, they they make all the difference for us. And really, kind of the big one is going to the shows. I know a lot of people, they like to support the music kind of from afar. They don't necessarily see themselves going out to a club or whatever. I have some fans, uh, they don't necessarily like to go to the loud bars, right? I'm fortunate because then they can come to my quiet listening room shows, right? But the biggest thing is find a way to get there in person. Because as an artist, butts in seats is still the thing that makes us the happiest. And not necessarily because each of those butts bought a ticket, but because each of those people is listening. Each of those people are listening. And so that is the biggest thing for us. It also helps the venue because I know that I have surprised some venues before because they see maybe my social media numbers. My streaming numbers and things. They're not exorbitant, but what I find is that when you find loyal fans, you don't necessarily have to have millions of them. You know, Walt Wilkins told me one time, man, if you can find 10,000 loyal fans, you'll never work again. That's all you need to support you. And if you can be honest with yourself and your fans and, live small, live humbly, be responsible, don't go out buying yachts, but, just, look at this kind of as a blue collar thing. You'd be surprised how often you can, just find some people who will support what you do, you know?
Yeah, I'm in it for the yacht personally, so
Yeah, me
that's
too.
my.
I'm still working on it. One of these days. One of these days.
I mean, I'm right in the middle of England, so there's no water
Yeah,
around me, but I'd
right.
still love to own a yacht. That
Yeah.
would be.
I'm in Dallas. We're about 10 hours from the ocean, so yeah.
Oh, you beat me there, mate. That's great. We're always trying to find ways to kind of support people, and it's interesting to hear the different ways we can do that. I'm a merch hound. Anytime I go
Great.
to the gigs, I grab a hat. Normally a
Yeah.
hat, because I just love collecting trucker hats.
Yeah.
T-shirts, koozies is a new one that I was
Yeah.
introduced to last year from you Americans. I think it was Anna Scott. She had some koozies for sale. I thought, what the hell's a koozie? So we don't tend to use those things here,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
they're pretty cool, man. So yeah, when you're over here, obviously bring your T-shirts and
Oh yeah,
stuff, and
absolutely.
vinyl's a big one as well. I think
Yes.
Colby T. Helms brought a bunch of that must weigh a ton to bring, any more than
Sure.
10
Yeah. Yeah.
vinyls over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a yeah, vinyl is quite of I think vinyl is one of those things. Most people don't realize it, but vinyl is one of the most production heavy parts of what we do. I'm very fortunate. One of my best friends in the world is Joe Fink, and he's the artist relations for Hand Drawn Pressing in Addison, Texas. And they're a independently owned vinyl press here in Texas, and they press my records. They do Silverado, but Joe also works with on up to like Lady Gaga and Eminem. He makes their records and stuff. So vinyl, man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make a record, and then to get that record onto vinyl is a whole nother bit of work. But I think it's so worth it. It's still one of my most popular items. I think people still love to
yeah.
have something in their hands. It's the tactile sensation of holding it, and my record, Mud and Sunshine, is it's on random color. So we don't know what color your disc is until there's two. We don't know what they are until we open it and pull them out and look.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of fun, kind of like when I was in America, we used to have like little toys in the cereal. It's kind of like that, it's like you dig to the bottom, and it's kind of like that. Everybody buys a record and like, ooh, what do we get? So yeah, vinyl is one of the coolest things, I think. And buying vinyl is huge. Buy vinyl and koozies, whatever floats your boat.
Bring the lot, mate. That's what we say. So happy days. Well, we'd love to see you over, like we keep saying. But yeah, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Zach. You're such an interesting guy. You've got so much going on, and I implore everyone to go and listen to your music because it's incredible. We're huge fans.
Thank you, man.
We look forward to putting your 2 tracks on the new playlist.
Yeah.
So we'll get that added tonight. And is there any kind of closing remarks or anything you want to kind of plug or add that perhaps we haven't covered? I know we've gone through a lot.
Yeah, we have. Man, just keep listening. I've got 4 records out there. Hope everybody will dive in, and hopefully they could find something they can use, something that works for them, But yeah, thanks for I would like to say thanks for supporting independent songwriters and artists out here. It makes a huge difference for guys like me to be able to just share my music anywhere I can. So I'm very thankful for you, sir, and I appreciate you very much.
No, I appreciate you, mate. It's been an honor. But so this is the final part of the show. I don't know if you have a drink to hand, mate.
There we go.
There you go. Almost the same as me.
Yeah.
So what we do is we raise a toast to the grit, the grind, and to the revival. Thanks everyone for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.